So welcome everyone. This is the Ohio Writers Guild, and tonight we are talking to Cody. And Cody, help me with your last name. How do you say that?
Renegar.
Renegar. Okay.
Renegar.
And we have Valeria on as well, which is his publicist. So I am so happy to have both of you on board today. And of course, with me, I have Sandy Kachurik, and she is my co-host, my co-mod. And she'll take over if I get bumped off the call, which has happened from time to time, depending on where I am. But right now I am in Columbus, Ohio. I am in my office in the corner of my kitchen. So for those of you that see there's a kitchen back there. And I just pop up this little screen and do my recordings right here in the corner of my kitchen. And then we actually blast everything out across the country. And I have an international academy called the Kathy Benner International Academy. And we also have a course in the academy that helps folks get started writing. And Sandy is also my my co-mod on the course and also in the mastermind. So that's what I do. And you can find out everything about me at kathybenner.com. And I am going to actually turn it over to Sandy for just a moment because she has an amazing writer's workshop coming up. And so I want to let her mention that in the podcast as well. So Sandy, I'll turn it over to you for a minute.
Sure. Thank you. Thank you very much. Hi, Sandy Kachurik. This is my 5th year directing a writer's workshop. It's a whole weekend in Yellow Springs, Ohio, and it's called Into the Springs. And it is one whole weekend in the same space with the featured guest instructors. This year, my guests are Jane Friedman. And by all means, if you don't know her yet, you should. If you want to know anything about marketing, publishing, the digital world, and I'm sure a lot about Chat GPT, which she will no doubt talk about coming up. And with her is a science fiction writer called Jason Sanford. And the two of them will present sessions with a room full of writers at various levels and genres. So their focus is on a variety of people in the room. They will celebrate what they do best, for example, science fiction, but they will make it so that whether you're a memoir writer or you haven't even started your author website, they'll know where to take you from that point. And for those who are multi-published. So they know how to speak to quite a wide range of an audience. I'm looking forward to that. So they're going to start with sessions such as, what are the trends going on now in marketing and publishing? And should you go independent publishing or traditional, or can you do both? And Jane knows how to talk to any learner at any point on how to get the best out of both of those types. There's also something called effective first lines. Those who want to, I'll have someone else, not the person, read the first page of their story. And Jane and Jason will act as if they are the ones choosing the work. Should they represent that first page author or not? And then explain why or why not. So what makes it effective? And they both had a lot of experience at that too. Then we have writing tips to advance wherever you are at this point. There are other sessions, and there's open mic reading night on Saturday night where you get to read 5 minutes wherever you want in any of your stories with a cash bar and so forth. So set up, minus the music, but set up for a nice social gathering and celebration of writing. There are a lot of other activities too, but of course, not only do you get a chance to listen to the speakers, but at any point, they stay with you through the whole weekend as well. So if you have a question you didn't think of or couldn't ask right then hold it off to the side. You may see them because lunch is included. You might be sitting next to them for lunch and talk about it at any point in time during the whole weekend. So it's innovative, it's invigorating, and quite honestly, I hope it's kind of exhausting. I hope by the end of Sunday at noon, you're like, holy smokes, that was a lot. But I figure this is it. This is the oasis that for a whole weekend, you get to absorb it all. So that's what I do. And I'll put my information there. A registration closes July 25th, and I'll put the contact information in the chat. Thanks, Kathy.
Oh, Sandy, thank you so much. I love that. Gosh, I didn't get to go last year. I jumped on board this year. I get to go. And after I signed up, my friends announced that that's going to be our class reunion that same weekend. And so I said, you know what? I'm going to the writer's workshop. I missed it last year. I'm doing the writer's workshop this year. So that's where I'm headed. So Sandy's going to put that in the chat. So grab that and sign up. And when I put this into our podcast platforms, I will also include how to connect with Sandy and myself as well, and with Cody and Valeria all together. Now, Valeria, do you want to share a little bit about what you do and what is your relationship with Cody?
Oh, sure. So I am Cody's publicist. I've been with him for almost a year now. So, or maybe a little bit over. So happy anniversary, Cody.
Thanks.
I've been in PR and marketing for the last almost 20 years. So I've been in beauty, wellness, food, beverage, basically, people, experts, products that make you feel good, look good, bring some sort of ease into your lifestyle. And I've been working with Cody on, awareness. So bringing awareness to, him as a professional hairstylist. He works with incredible people around the country, from celebrities like Gwyneth Paltrow and Cameron Diaz to, Fortune 500 executives to, you and I, just regular people. He's based out of LA. He also travels to Arkansas, which is where he's from, and I'm sure he'll tell you about that, as well as DC every couple of weeks. He has a very loyal following throughout the country. And so my job is to essentially just, raise his profile. So get him on, television, talking about hair, get him in media interviews, talking about the best shampoos or what the summer trends are for hair, as well as, talking about his book, which is his journey from homelessness to Hollywood, which I'm sure he's going to, go into a little bit further here on this call. But it's been an amazing year with us, for us and for myself, and excited for you to get to know Cody a little bit better.
Thank you so much for that. So what a wonderful introduction for Cody. Cody, thank you for being with us today. Yes, we're so glad that you're here. So I have a little bit of a background, which of course was just shared about you being a hairstylist and all the great things that you're doing and all the travels and all the A-listers that, that you're connected with. So how fun is that? I just want to follow you around for a while.
So
and then of course, I did look up do you have more than one book, or is it just the one, Changing the Stars?
Just the one for now.
Okay. Oh, for now. I like that. Just the one for now. I like that. Okay. So this is actually a true story, if I read it correctly. And I don't want to give away everything because I kind of want to have you share your journey. So tell us a little bit about your journey and the background that kind of went into writing the book. So tell us a little bit about that journey.
The journey of writing the book.
Well, what the book is about and
okay.
Yeah.
I'd love to. Thank you. Well, it's my memoir. It's about my life. This is the book here, Changing the Stars. It's about my life. It's basically a story from homelessness to Hollywood. So I started out life. My mother was a prostitute in South Texas, and we were homeless and living under bridges and in abandoned houses, and just like crazy shelters and horrible foster families and all this nonsense that just kind of really was hard to dig yourself out of. So my book is really, and I think a lot of people can relate to that in a certain element about digging yourself out. So my book is basically just kind of a guidebook to choosing happiness. And it's about my life going from finally being an adult and then doing the work on myself. And so that I am able to be a healthy and capable adult. So many people get stuck in the victim mentality and aren't ready to do the work yet and kind of choose happiness and choose life. So I have always heard the phrase that when you go through hell and you make it through hell, that you should turn around and hand out buckets of water for those that are still there. And so this book is kind of my bucket of water.
Nice.
Wow. When I just read about the book, It talks about how you were raised by a substance abusing single mom, and that at somewhere around 4.5 to 6 years old, somewhere in that range, that you and your 4 siblings were placed into foster care. And so from there, you just, the foster system can be good and bad and all in between. So it sounds like that you had a lot of abuse and neglect going through that whole system. Now, did you get to stay together with your siblings, or were you guys separated at some point?
Well, once we were taken away at 4.5, we were actually put back with our mother and then taken away again. And then we kind of bounced around different foster homes and some shelters. And then when I was 7 years old, all 5 of us were separated to different homes, because at that point we had so much that we needed to work through, so much trauma and everything, that one family couldn't possibly take in 5 children who had gone through that sort of nightmare. So they separated us and put us into different foster families. And I was adopted at age of 8. And then I went back into the system whenever I just turned 15. So the state notified that I had been in an abusive home for 8 years, and they took me away and put me back in an orphanage when I was 15 until I turned 18.
Wow. Lots of bumps along the way for you. I noticed that you mentioned at one point that a neighbor taught you to paint. And one of the things that you do is that you do art as well. So you do hair, you do art, you've written a book. It just very creative and talented.
All things creative, as much as I can.
Yeah. I see that. So how did that start with the neighbor teaching you to do art?
Well, it started a little before that, actually. I was in a separate foster home, and I remember never really hearing praise or any sort of positive reinforcement, just because we were just trying to survive. And a lot of times my mother would be gone for weeks at a time, and there was just no sort of praise. So one time I was in a foster home, and I saw this book with this little boy. On the cover was a boy jumping over a log, riding a horse and all. And for some reason, I just decided I wanted to sit down and I wanted that picture for myself. So it wasn't my book. So I decided to get a piece of paper and I started to make my own picture. I didn't even understand the concept of art or drawing or anything. I was 5 years old and I wanted that picture, but I didn't want the book. So I drew it myself, and people kept coming around and tossing my hair and saying, "Good job, Cody. Great job. You're going to be an artist. You're an artist." And I'm like, "What's an artist?" And I think at some point it was my first ever interaction with a positive reinforcement or praise, and it triggered something in me. So ever since then, I've been drawing. I sold my first painting of a horse when I was 12 years old. And that neighbor was actually the neighbor later on in another adoptive home. And she actually had a horse barn and lived in the horse barn. Her apartment was the horse barn. So I was obviously just really into horses. And so I would just go sit with her. And I was also hiding from a really abusive adopted father. And so I would basically just stay at her house and hide in that barn and just sit and watch her paint and shoo the flies away from the paint and just sit. And she was just the most genuine, authentic, sort of safe person, which was very important. So I just stayed in that barn and watched her paint and kind of caught the bug myself.
Wow. I'm just trying to sit with your story a little bit in
There's a lot.
and what you went through. And then it was a school nurse who actually came to your rescue, so to speak.
Yeah, that to finally get me out of that particular home. That guy was he was tying me up in the barn and whipping me from my neck to my ankles, and he would tie me up with my clothes over and blindfolding me and stuff. So this happened a lot, and he thought he was doing good. He thought there were demons. He was just a super religious sort of person. And so I think back then he thought he was understanding that I was gay, like it was showing a little bit. And so he thought he was saving my soul. So the intention was pure, I guess, at some point. But anyway, so I go to this school, and this private Christian school I was going to, and at one point they were doing a scoliosis test where they try to lift your shirt, and you bend over, touch your knees, and they see your alignment, and they couldn't lift my clothes. My clothes were stuck to my body at that point. And I had several people in my school knew what was happening, some of the kids, but they weren't able to convince the adults. So we had all come up with a story that said I'd fallen off a four-wheeler into bushes and been I guess as a kid I thought that was a viable story, but once I got up there and told them my story, nobody believed that. So they called the police right then and took me out of the home.
Wow. Okay. So your own resilience and your positive outlook is what you got through all of that. I mean, as a child, I don't know where you gather that from when you have those kinds of experiences.
I think we all have it. I think we all have it
Yeah.
in, for sure.
Wow. So wonderful. So when did you finally, was it once you turned 18 that you just, was that when you could like let the air out and say, I'm now an adult and I don't have to deal with all of that? Or was that still a struggle for you?
It was just a little bit before I turned 18. I was still living in that children's home, and I realized that I was ready. There was also a sexual predator at that children's home that was sort of on coming in close, and I was trying to basically run from that person. And so I actually just got on the phone and found my birth family from a payphone and called them and said, can you come get me? There's this person that's trying to groom me, I guess is what they say now. So anyway, so I basically just ran away at just a few months before I turned 18. And that home wasn't safe either. So I literally joined the Army to say, okay, now it's all up to me. And so at that point, and I took it very seriously, when I turned 18, whatever trauma, whatever baggage I had, it was not mine. So I wanted to live a very bright, clear, strong life and leave all that behind me. And the only way I was going to be able to do that is to look inside myself and search for the flaws, search for any sort of baggage that had been there and get that away from me. Obviously, what didn't happen overnight, and I'm still every day working on that, obviously, as a human being. But I think that just climbing, I'm sorry, I just lost my train of thought. What was the question?
No, it was just once you turned 18, how you got away from all of that. And I think mentally and emotionally, it would be hard to know how to compartmentalize that to, so that you could move on and become a healthy, productive adult, which you are. You're actually quite amazing with all of your accomplishments. And so now you are married, you have a child, right?
I have a 26-year-old child.
And so now, and you have grandchildren.
3 gorgeous grandchildren, yes.
How exciting is that? So I love the life that you have carved out for yourself, but wow, that took a lot of stamina and willpower on your part to keep going, I'm sure. So where in your life, as you came through all of this, you then turned 18, now you're in the Army. How long were you in the Army?
I was actually in the Army for 6 months before I was discharged for PTSD from the trauma that had happened. So I showed up in the Army with PTSD, as opposed to a lot of people, unfortunately, leave the Army with PTSD.
Yeah. Okay, so from there, how did you get to the life that you're living today? What were the steps there, and where in that journey did you decide that you wanted to write a book?
Okay, I love that. So I turned 18, I joined the Army, and I realized that, well, I was having nightmares, apparently, that the drill sergeants yelling and all had triggered a lot of stuff, and I was having nightmares that my roommate turned me in and said, something's off with this guy. I wasn't remembering my nightmares, but they sent me to the doctor, and the doctor said he has PTSD and needs therapy. And that was really the first time in my life I thought just getting out of it and getting away was enough. I was free. But then obviously triggers happen and little things happen here and there. And I just thought, I'm not whole yet. So I think being discharged from the military under PTSD really was eye-opening for me. So I started doing a lot of research on my own, reading a lot of self-help sort of books, and had a therapist also in Fort Smith, Arkansas, and for a little while. But I kind of did a lot of legwork on my own, just finding people who had gone through what I had and learning, much like my book, learning from what they did to heal themselves. And I actively sought out different triggers because I didn't want to be a basket of a mess, So I think that just knowing that happened really set me on a mission to just actively searching for my flaws and getting to the root of them and getting rid of them so that I could be a great husband, a great father, a great friend. Absolutely. There's zero downside to self-improvement.
So I love that. So where in that process did you say, I think I want to put this into a book?
So after, so being a hairstylist, you tend to have a lot of people in your chair, as you know, and people would ask me a simple question as like, "Hey, do you have siblings?" And I'm like, "Okay, here we go. I've got to open up the whole box to answer one question." I think after telling so many of my clients for so many years, about 20 years actually, my bits of my story, so many of them would say, "Hey, you should write a book." And I think every writer out there has heard this.
Mhm.
And you should write a book. You should write a book. And so I just kind of
Yep.
thought that was a knee-jerk response that they were just saying. And I'm like, why would I don't even know what ending I had. What I was like, there's no happy ending. I'm way too young to write a memoir. And all the negative thoughts just kept piling in, piling in, piling in. And then I got the idea once that my story could really help people because it was helping people in my chair. So I thought I felt a certain responsibility, honestly, to share what I had. And I realized that I didn't need a happy ending. I realized that my ending is perfectly fine. And I didn't want to give my readers a false level, like it's not over or you're not allowed to be happy until you have the perfect husband, the perfect life, the perfect job, the perfect, I didn't want that. So I'm still super flawed and still working on it every day. But I think that just writing the book is just my gift to those people that were like me, because I wish I had a book like that for sure. And to answer the question at the end, when I first decided I was going to write it, I just sat down in front of my fireplace with a glass of wine and my iPad and just started writing one story after another. And once I got that ball rolling, and finally got that first pen to the paper or finger to iPad, then it kind of just flowed after that. And I just collected one story after another, after another, after another. And I just took that pressure off of myself that I didn't have to have a full, complete book immediately. I wrote one little memory at a time. And then all of a sudden, I had this line and I had a story. Then I hired a ghostwriter who helped me streamline that story because I'm not, in fact, a writer. I mean, I'm not a trained writer. So just when I decided I needed to write that book was whenever everybody told me I needed to.
Well, that was going to be my next question is when did you know that you were ready? And so you just made the decision one day that you were just going to start collecting the stories.
Right. I thought, everything in life is baby steps, those little steps. So I was like, all right, I have to at least start somewhere. And it was just this big mountain in my head. And once I just said, you know what, I don't have to have a happy ending. I don't have to have an ending at all. And I don't have to know how to write it. I just let myself be human, I guess, and just started typing a nonsense. I mean, it looked like a mess, but I needed to get that message out. And the ghostwriter, for anybody who is not a writer but still has a story, I would strongly encourage a ghostwriter once you've compiled as much as you can.
Because they can take all of those stories and kind of arrange them into a storyline, which, was that hard for you when you started writing? Did you plot it out somehow like, oh, I forgot this story goes in here and I've already written a story past that, so I now need to back up? Did you write them in segments like that and then kind of arrange them after the fact?
I think that naturally happened. I think once I got them, I saw that there were holes missing. And also the ghostwriter, who knew nothing about my life, it's all in my head, but he had the holes. He was like, well, this doesn't connect to this. And what happened in this space? And that streamlined it so much better for me.
Okay. So, now you're already a hairstylist. You've already been, behind a chair. I've always wanted to write something called Behind the Chair.
Yeah. There's a page called Behind the Chair, actually.
Yes. But you and I both know that, boy, there are some stories there.
So many you can't tell. Yeah. And that's what makes a successful stylist is you just keep your mouth shut.
Right. You can't tell them. You just have to say, I am so sorry you're going through that.
Right. Definitely.
So anyway, with you having that kind of a schedule, and I know what kind of a schedule that can be, how did you or do you make time for writing in that schedule? Did you have a certain set of time every day that you wrote, or did you just whenever it kind of came over you, you said, I think I'm going to write tonight? How did you schedule your writing?
How did I schedule my writing? Well, I think that when you have something that's really pulling at your heart, a passion, you kind of find time. And I just looked through my day because I was also a single father and was raising my son. And and I was just kind of looking through the holes of full-time job, raising the boy. And I thought every night, whenever I put him to bed, I'd always go in, do homework, put him to bed and do the same routine. And then I'd go sit by my fireplace and open up a bottle of wine and watch Netflix just mindlessly for, hours, as we do, go into a Netflix vortex or any sort of streaming thing. So I thought, well, there's my window right there. I just had to change my focus and what meant more to me. And so I just started writing every night after I put my son to bed until I fell asleep.
Nice.
Okay. Now I haven't read your book yet, but I plan to. And so I
Love to
didn't have
hear your
time
thoughts.
from the time that I actually was introduced to you as an author and saw that you had the book, and I did my research on what the book was about. I just haven't had time to actually read the book, but I am going to do that. And so I know what your book is about, but did you, or when you published it, is it like in, do all of your stories kind of have like a beginning and an end as you go through the book? Are there like moral to the stories as you go? Like, I guess the real question is, I understand when you're writing about your life, you have to kind of go back there and you have to revisit those things that happened to you in order for you to put it on paper. Did you put your adult viewpoint into that story before you went on to the next story, or did you wait until the end of the book to put your adult viewpoint in there?
Each chapter started out with a quote that kind of prefaced what the chapter was going to be about. And then at the end of each chapter, I would definitely recap and say, this is where my mindset was. These are the positive thoughts and the negative thoughts. And this is how I dug myself out of this particular hole. And then I would move to the next chapter. So each chapter is a pretty intense story with a lesson at the end, I guess, something, not a lesson or a tool that you can take with you.
Okay. Okay. Now, if you had to say there is an overarching message to the whole book, what would be your overarching message?
Well, my passion for everything has always been to just inspire everyone to live their biggest, brightest, loudest life, because we've got one chance at this, So I think my biggest message is just to inspire, to choose happiness, to do that work on yourself. And then there's, like I said, I guess no downside to self-improvement. I just want to inspire people to live their life. I've been around the world 3 times, and I'm just like living my passions. And I know everyone has a passion inside of them, and traveling is my passion. And everyone has a passion. I just think that once you dig all of that mess out of there, it releases you to be your true self. So that's my passion, is inspiring people to be exactly who they want to be.
And so now you say you've been around the world 3 times. So you realize that there's a big world out there. And do you ever feel bad that somehow you got shortchanged as a child?
I used to. I definitely used to. But I don't see it that way anymore. I love that you just said that. Nobody's ever asked me that, and I've done a million of these interviews. I don't feel bad at all. Whenever I was younger, I used to be sad that I didn't have the memories that my friends would have. I always had an aversion to going to dinner at people's houses because I would see the family and I would see everybody, and it was okay as long as I didn't see it. So I always felt like kind of the token orphan or whatever. But I'm sorry, start the question. So tell me the question again. I just had 19,000 thoughts.
No, I get it. No, it's about, did you ever feel bad about your childhood? Did you ever?
Right. Thank you. So no, once I had my son, I always missed that I didn't have those memories, like throwing football with my dad and everything. But once I had my son, we went camping every day. I was the assistant coach on his soccer team. I mean, every weekend. And I was just like, throwing the football with him, doing homework, all these amazing memories that I now have. I'm just on the other side of it. So I just created those memories for myself and gave my son a phenomenal childhood. That was one of the most important things to me.
I love that. I could just talk to you forever.
Did that answer the question?
I love the tenaciousness. Yes. I just love that you just had the wherewithal to say, I can change this. I can change my situation. I can help other folks. I can inspire. I can write these stories. You're just so creative and so talented, and such a wonderful human being, that I am so happy that you are here and so happy on the fact that you wrote this book and it's going to inspire so many folks. What are your plans for the future, Cody?
For the future in my life, my job, and maybe I might write another book. I might write a children's book. I kind of want to write something to help the babies a little bit. So we'll see where that goes. As far as my plans for the book, it's actually being turned into a documentary right now. And then after that, it's being turned into a feature film and a musical.
Wow.
So a lot of plans. And it has nothing to do with me. I had nothing to do with it. It's kind of taken on a life of its own.
Wow.
And actors are coming out. You know, I am in Hollywood, and a lot of my actor clients have read it, and they're like picking their parts. It's already one of my clients is a phenomenal composer in England, and she's already written all the music for it. And I mean, it's just fun. This thing is just taking on a life of its own. So I just couldn't be happier. Professionally, I plan on sticking around Hollywood for a while and seeing who will use me. And my personal life, I've got 3 grandbabies that I'm just ready to spoil rotten.
I love that. I want to open it up for questions. We've got Alea, Marilyn, Terry in the audience. Put in the chat if you have a question for Cody. And Sandy, if you have any questions or comments, jump in. And we'll just wait a second here and see if anybody has any questions or comments for Cody. So please feel free.
Sure. No, you are in the right spot at the right time to get this off the ground. That's impressive. I mean, to have all these folks want to go beyond the book, kind of,
It's so humbling.
yeah, it gives you that kind of, there's a lot of writers who wonder, am I good enough? Or am I just parading around saying I'm a writer, but I'm not really? I mean, nothing like positive reinforcement. And you've done it all. Like you said, you took it, baggage and all, the good stuff and the bad stuff. And
I do want to say I didn't do it alone. There were people left and right. You know, people showed up, and that was one of my strongest points. Was I was not afraid to reach out for those hands that were reaching out for me. So, yeah, I don't want to say by any means that I did it alone. I had support, angels that were sent to me.
Yeah, no, I just, and it's nice that you have some friends and staff people who are willing to help juggle all those balls you have in the air right now.
I'm so lucky. So lucky.
Yeah. I can't wait.
Terry is sending you kisses in the chat.
That's my husband.
So Terry, thank you for that. Thank you so much for that. Now, Cody, I think I do think that speaks of you and just who you are. That I truly believe that when you do the right stuff for all the right reasons, that the universe just rewards that. And I think that's what you're seeing, because you're doing all the right stuff for all the right reasons, and the universe is rewarding that for you. Yeah. And
you mentioned here, I wanted to say, you mentioned earlier about did I feel like I was missing something? I do want to say that I feel like that gift, that childhood was a gift, because that's only less than 18 years of my life, but I get this whole life that I can use that nightmare to take it and turn it into something good. And I think we all have that inside of us. So, I mean, I feel like I was gifted a really crappy childhood. Yeah. Is that a weird way to say that?
Yeah.
Cody, this has been such a wonderful interview. How can all of our listeners get in touch with you? Because again, it's contagious. People want to be around you. How can they get in touch with you?
I have a Facebook page that's Cody Renegar, and it's spelled like renegade, sounds like vinegar. I have a Facebook page, Cody Renegar, and then I have an Instagram page, Hair by Cody Renegar, and a TikTok. I've got them all. It's all out there.
Good.
Thank you.
I have jotted down 0 downside to self-improvement, because you've said it twice, and I'm thinking I like the way you put that. And when you said it twice, that plus a Netflix vortex, I think they work really well together. You conquer one, and you're on your way to the other. So thank you. Thank you.
Yeah, you know what? Self-improvement, you can never argue with that as being a good thing. So that's no matter what level you're at what you're reaching for, you can never argue that that's, you know, that that's going to be bad. So
And the best
I
thing is
love-
there's always another step to take.
Yeah.
yes. And,
Yeah.
and it's always, yes. I mean, even at, and I'm probably the oldster here. But even at my age, I just, as my life unfolds, I find that I just want to be a better me every day. You know, and again, I think the more that you strive toward that, I do believe that that's rewarded. And we can see that very clearly with your life and everything that has come to you, that you have attracted because of who you are. So thank you so
Wow.
much for being with us today. I love that.
This was fantastic.
Yeah, I love that you're here now. And before we go, for those that are also listening, all the replays are going to be at kathybenner.com. Scroll down to the Ohio Writers Guild free section and click through, and you can find all the replays. And Cody, I will send out to you. I'll send out the links, and so you can use any of these replays in anything that you're doing to help promote anything that you have on the table. And that way you can do pieces of it or in whole, whatever works for you. You're welcome to use
I think Valeria's got the handle on that one.
Yes, I see that. Yep. Hair by Cody is there on Instagram, Facebook, TikTok. Yes. So thank you so much for being with us
Thank
today.
you, ladies. I appreciate you so much for helping me get my story out.
Yes. And we appreciate you so much. Thank you for being here.
Thank you.
Bye. Bye-bye.